In the blood-soaked summer of 479 BC, a silence fell over the plains of Boeotia that was heavier and more terrifying than the roar of battle. A massive Greek coalition had just encircled a fortified Persian encampment where thousands of enemy soldiers, now defeated and defenseless, huddled in anticipation of their fate. Yet what followed was not warfare in any traditional sense, but a systematic liquidation that history books often sanitize. We are frequently told the legendary tale of the 300 Spartans at Thermopylae, a narrative of heroic failure and noble sacrifice that stirs the soul, but we are rarely told what happened 11 months later, when the Spartans returned not with few hundred men, but with 10,000, spearheading the largest Greek army ever to march upon the earth. Conventional history glosses over the definition of vengeance in the ancient world and fails to articulate what transpires when a civilization decides that mercy is a luxury they can no longer afford. By the time twilight settled over the killing fields of Plataea, the dead would not be tallied in hundreds, but in the tens of thousands, and survivors, a mere 3,000 remnants of a force that had boasted over 100,000, would drag themselves home bearing a message that would shatter the confidence of the Persian Empire forever. This is the untold chronicle of how ancient Greece answered the martyrdom of Thermopylae, and why the magnitude of the bloodshed was such that even the victors would wrestle with the darkness of their triumph. To understand the carnage of 479 BC, we must rewind to August of 480 BC at the narrow pass of Thermopylae, where King Leonidas lay dead, his body subjected to a grotesque indignity on the direct orders of King Xerxes, beheaded and crucified as a grim warning to any who would defy the King of Kings. Surrounding the fallen Spartan monarch were the corpses of his 300 bodyguards, along with 700 Thespians and 400 Thebans, all obliterated not merely as a military tactic, but as a performative act of terror. Xerxes commanded that the Greek dead be stripped and left to putrefy in the blistering heat, forcing his marching columns to parade past the rotting display for 3 days, a visual lesson in the futility of resistance. Yet, Thermopylae was never designed to be a victory for the Greeks. It was a cold calculation, a transaction where blood was the currency paid to purchase time. As the Persian juggernaut rolled south, the terrifying question remained: what exactly had that sacrifice bought? By September 480 BC, Mardonius, Xerxes' most capable and ruthless general, was tearing through central Greece, reducing the landscape to ash. The city of Thespi was not just captured but incinerated. Its population fled, its existence erased. Plataea suffered the same fate, a systematic dismantling of stone and timber that signaled this was not a war of conquest, but of annihilation. When the Persians finally breached Athens, they found a ghost city, evacuated weeks prior to the island of Salamis, leaving only empty streets and the sacred temples of the Acropolis to face the wrath of the invaders. The Persians torched it all, setting fire to the ancient Parthenon and the temple of Athena Polias, destroying centuries of sacred relics in a blaze that raged for days until Athens was nothing more than a blackened scar upon the hilltop. This was cultural genocide, a deliberate attempt to wipe the concept of Greece from the historical record. However, the tide began to turn in the narrow straits of Salamis, where the Greek navy baited the massive Persian fleet into a claustrophobic trap, ramming and sinking the heavy enemy vessels until the waters churned with debris and drowning men. Xerxes, watching from his golden throne on the coast, saw his naval supremacy evaporate in a single afternoon and, fearing being trapped in Europe, decided to retreat with half his army, leaving Mardonius behind to finish the job with the elite remainder. The strategic message was blunt. The war should have been won, and Mardonius was tasked with ending it. During the freezing winter of 480 to 479 BC, Mardonius withdrew his forces to the friendly territories of Thessaly and Macedonia, sitting on a stockpile of over 100,000 troops, including Persian infantry, cavalry, and thousands of Greek collaborators from cities like Thebes who had chosen submission over death. Meanwhile, in Sparta, the winter brought a different kind of coldness as Pausanias, the nephew of the fallen Leonidas, was appointed regent, a young man burdened with the ghost of his uncle and the weight of a kingdom clamoring for action. The Spartan assembly was called in a debate, torn between isolationist caution and the thirst for immediate retribution. Yet beneath the arguments lay a darker, unspoken realization. The coming spring offensive would not just be about survival, but about defining the future of the Hellenic world. By the spring of 479 BC, Mardonius attempted to fracture the Greek alliance through diplomacy, dispatching Alexander I of Macedon to Athens with a seductively generous offer promising complete reconstruction, territorial expansion, and self-governance under Persian suzerainty. The Athenians, living in squalid refugee camps on Salamis, while gazing at the ruins of their city across the water, faced a choice between immediate restoration or continued suffering. Their response was absolute. They not only rejected the offer, but threatened death to anyone who even considered it. A resolve demonstrated horrifically when a council member named Lycidas suggested hearing the terms, prompting the mob to stone him to death, while the women of Athens dragged his wife and children from their homes to share his fate. When Mardonius received this message of defiance, he responded with renewed fury, marching back into the ruins of Athens to shatter whatever stone was left standing, poisoning wells and salting the earth in a campaign of punishment rather than strategy. With Athens destroyed twice in 1 year, Mardonius withdrew to the plains of Boeotia near Plataea, a location chosen with lethal precision because the flat terrain maximized the effectiveness of his cavalry, the deadliest arm of the Persian military. He constructed a massive wooden fortress, stockpiled supplies, and waited, issuing a silent challenge to the Greeks to come and die on his terms. The Athenians sent desperate pleas to Sparta, warning that if the Spartans did not march, Athens might be forced to capitulate, finally spurring the dormant giant of the Peloponnese into action. Pausanias mobilized the full might of the Spartan state, a force of unprecedented magnitude, including 5,000 elite Spartiates, 5,000 perioikoi, and 35,000 Helots armed as light infantry, a mesmerizing and terrifying mobilization of society built entirely for war. As they marched north, their ranks swelled with contingents from Corinth, Megara, and other allies, eventually linking up with 8,000 Athenian hoplites to form a coalition of nearly 110,000 men, the largest Greek army ever assembled in recorded history. Taking position on the rugged slopes of Mount Cithaeron, the Greeks looked down upon the Persian positions, creating a tense tactical deadlock where the Greeks held the high ground necessary for their phalanx, while the Persians controlled the plains essential for their cavalry. For days, the two colossal armies stared each other down, neither willing to surrender their advantage, until a Persian cavalry probe commanded by the flamboyant Mecistius ventured too close to the uneven terrain. In the ensuing skirmish, an Athenian arrow brought down Mecistius's horse, and the Greeks swarmed the fallen commander, piercing his ornate golden armor until he ceased to move. The death of Mecistius was a psychological hammer blow. The Persians shaved their heads and cut the manes of their horses in mourning, their wails echoing across the plains. The Greeks paraded his corpse on a cart, a grotesque trophy that surged morale. However, Mardonius was a tactician of the highest order, and he soon located the Gargantuan spring, the sole water source of the Greek army, and under the cover of darkness, his cavalry destroyed it, choking the spring with dirt and corpses. Suddenly, 110,000 men were stranded in the summer heat, without water, forcing the Greek command into a desperate decision to retreat under the cover of night to a new defensive line. This maneuver, difficult even for modern armies, dissolved into absolute chaos as units lost contact in the dark. Commanders became separated, and by dawn, the Greek army was dangerously fragmented, scattered over miles of terrain with their battle line broken. As the sun rose, Mardonius looked out from his camp and saw what appeared to be a fleeing, disorganized rabble, and believing the moment of victory was at hand, he ordered a general advance. The Persian army surged forward like a breaking dam, with the elite immortals, the disparate levies of the empire, and the Greek collaborators rushing to crush the Spartan right wing, which seemed isolated and vulnerable. Pausanias, watching the terrifying approach of the enemy host, ordered his 10,000 Spartans and Tegeans to halt and reform, the bronze shields locking together to form an impenetrable wall of metal. Yet, disaster loomed as the Spartan seers, reading the entrails of sacrificial goats, reported unfavorable omens, forbidding the army from advancing or engaging. As thousands of Persian arrows began to rain down, punching through bronze and flesh, the Spartans stood frozen by religious law, dying in their ranks without striking back, a testament to their inhuman discipline. Men fell screaming, pinned to the earth by shafts of ash and iron, while Pausanias frantically ordered sacrifice after sacrifice, begging the gods for permission to kill. Finally, whether the omens shifted or desperation forced his hand, the order was given, The Spartan Phalanx did not run but marched, a slow, unstoppable grinding machine moving to meet the Persian charge. The collision was tectonic. The Persians had planted their wicker shields to form a wall, but the heavy bronze shields and long spears of the Spartans smashed through them with kinetic violence, turning the front line into a crushing press of bodies. The combat was intimate and horrific, with Persians grabbing Spartan spears with their bare hands, shattering the shafts, and stabbing with daggers in a desperate attempt to bridge the gap in weaponry. Mardonius himself, mounted on a white charger and surrounded by his finest bodyguards, fought with the ferocity of a cornered lion, but the tide turned when a Spartan soldier hurled a rock that crushed the general's skull, or perhaps it was a spear thrust that ended him. The confusion of battle obscures the method, but the result was absolute. With Mardonius dead, the nerve of the Persian army snapped, and the retreat began, transforming quickly from withdrawal into a rout. This was the moment the battle ended and the slaughter began. For ancient warfare dictates that the true killing happens not during the clash of lines, but during the pursuit. The Greeks, fueled by a year of burning cities and desecrated temples, unleashed their light infantry and cavalry to run down the fleeing Persians, turning the plain of Plataea into a vast abattoir. The remnant of the Persian force, terrified and leaderless, fled back to their wooden fortress, barring the gates in a futile attempt to survive. The Spartans, masters of open combat but inept at siegecraft, struggled to breach the walls until the Athenians arrived, bringing their technical expertise to tear a hole in the defenses. When the wooden walls finally collapsed, the Greek army poured inside like a flood of molten iron, and the mask of civilized warfare slipped completely. Inside the camp, trapped against the walls, the Persians were not taken prisoner. They were exterminated. The historical accounts are chilling in their brevity, describing a systematic move through tents and supply lines where every living thing was put to the sword. Herodotus, the father of history, claims that 100,000 of Persians, only 3,000 survived the day, a figure that, even if exaggerated, points to a casualty rate of nearly total annihilation. The Greeks lost perhaps a few thousand men, while the Persians lost an entire generation of soldiers in a single afternoon. The looting that followed was frantic and immense, with Pausanias securing mountains of gold, silver, and precious textiles, famously ordering a Persian feast to be prepared alongside a Spartan black broth to mock the luxury of his defeated foes. But beneath the celebration lay the grim reality of the massacre, a carnage so complete that it fundamentally changed the psyche of the victors. The Greeks had not just won a battle. They had sent a message written in blood that the price of invasion was extinction. Following the victory at Plataea and a simultaneous naval triumph at Mycale, the Greeks turned on their own, besieging collaborative city of Thebes and demanding the surrender of its leaders, whom Pausanias promptly executed without trial. The unity of the Greeks, forged in the fires of extinction, would eventually fracture into the rivalry between Athens and Sparta, leading to the Peloponnesian War. But the specter of Plataea hung over them all, a lesson that victory is not just about defeating an enemy, but about the willingness to do the unthinkable to ensure they never return. Plataea remains a difficult chapter to reconcile, often overshadowed by Thermopylae because it lacks the romance of the underdog. It is a story of overwhelming force, of tactical blunders turning into slaughter, and of vengeance so absolute it borders on the industrial. The Victory Monument erected at Delphi lists the cities that fought, but omits the number of the dead, perhaps because the scale of the killing was something even the Greeks found uncomfortable to immortalize in stone. The 10,000 Spartans had avenged the 300 not by dying, but by killing until there was no one left to kill, proving that while Thermopylae showed the world how Greeks could die, Plataea showed the world how they could kill. It forces us to confront the uncomfortable truth that civilization is often preserved not by mercy, but by a level of violence that history prefers to forget, leaving us to wonder where the line is drawn between necessary defense and total erasure.